This is Kyle Kane's semester summary on why I deserve a B in the Physics 101 class. So first I'll be discussing the physics aspects of the class and everything that I've learned from it. So one of the first concepts we learned about was motion, and how motion can be described by using position versus time graphs, as well as velocity versus time graphs, as well as acceleration versus time graphs. We learned that the positive direction is moving away from the observer or sensor, and the negative direction is moving towards or backwards from the sensor. Velocity is similar. It describes how fast the object is moving in both the positive and negative direction. Acceleration is also similar. However, it is always a flat line, as it is only showing when there is a change in the velocity. So the first lab we did was one where we tried to mimic the graphs that we saw, and the object would be our bodies. We would have to move closer, farther away, while trying to match the velocity laid out for us by the computer program we used. The next subject of the class was about energy. A core idea we learned was that energy never disappears or goes away. It is just transferred into another form of energy or to another object. The three types of energy that were covered were kinetic, gravitational or potential, and internal or thermal energies. So, we would use the skate park simulator to watch how these three energies interacted as the skater moves up and down the skate ramps. Moving forward, from there, we were soon able to calculate the speed of a ball at various points as it traveled through obstacles and up and down curves, similar to the physics skate park. We then moved on to more calculations in order to find out how high up on a ramp a ball would need to be so that it got the velocity needed to travel about 1 meter away or any distance away. And then soon after that, our next project was a first group project in which it was soak to teach. And we had to calculate how far back in a slingshot we would need a pole in order to launch a water balloon a certain distance. We accomplished this by using a vector diagram as well as other formulas and equations that we learned in the class. The next concept we tackled was how forces interact with each other in the world. If a bug ran into the windshield belonging to a car going 60 miles per hour, which one would apply more force? The answer is neither, because both would apply the same amount of force to each other. We then learned about wavelengths and how antennas are built to be a quarter of the length of the waves that they want to catch. This is because the waves generally peak at about 1/4 and 3/4 of their wavelengths. Now, following up that, towards the end of the class, we went over the colors of pigment and light. The pigment colors are cyan, magenta, and yellow. The colors of light are red, green, and blue. One of our final labs was to find out how many reflections are created by positioning two mirrors at certain angles apart from each other. These are just some of the things that we learned in class with physics, as well as things that we would need to know for the first and second and final interviews of the class. Outside of class, we discussed many of the problems with our educational system today. From the first discussion, which described educational bulimia, as you call it, all the way to how technology should be used in classrooms today. So, educational bulimia is the belief that the educational system right now isn't set up. It isn't too efficient, because we are just taught to memorize information, and as soon as we test over that information, all that knowledge is forgotten, which is actually a very interesting idea. We also discussed various approaches to life. For example, with the 4D humanity, we should have religious, logical, ethical, and scientific approach to different situations in life. A lot of these discussions really challenged the way that I look at school and our educational system in general. They made me really think about what is wrong with our schools and the way they are currently set up, and also what should be changed with these schools. I never really thought about any of this stuff before, and so it really opened my eyes to the fact that something is wrong with our schools and how they are set up. I did like the way this class was run, although I'm a little nervous about the possibility of the pass-fail grade in the final interview. Back to what I was saying earlier, a lot of the discussions were almost philosophical, which was very unexpected, but it did succeed in encouraging me to think critically about both the discussions as well as certain aspects of life outside of class. We would also have to find an interesting article or video that covered information on a random subject that you assigned us. In the process, we would be learning about a random aspect of physics or technology, and I really thought that part of the class was awesome. So just a general rundown of some of the projects that we covered in class. A lot of them kind of focused on learning and using new technologies that are either brand new or that many of us just hadn't seen before. So on the first day of class, we were introduced to the Smart Pen, which actually records everything that it hears as well as all the information that you're writing down. So everything you're writing on the special paper converts to a special file, so you are able to document your notes, which is really cool, and I actually plan to buy one for the next semester coming up. Soon after that, we were designing a 3D model so we could print it out on the school's 3D printer. That was pretty cool because 3D printing is a pretty new technology, and it was fascinating to watch it as it kind of printed these objects into existence. For our weekly summaries, we had to learn how to use Evernote, screencasting, Prezi, Pinterest, infographics, and blogs in order to present information. I thought that was cool, and I think the point of it was to teach us to be versatile in the way that we're able to make presentations, and maybe some of those skills will help us in the professional lives as well. We also kind of had a brief lesson into Excel, which kind of goes back to the knowledge that might be going into the professional field, as my parents have both said that they use Excel at nearly every office job that they've ever had. So I think the reason for all these projects was to challenge us all to learn about new things and also to help us in life outside of class as well as after our academic careers. Although I signed up for a physics class, I really kind of got the feeling that I was leaving a philosophy, physics, and technology hybrid class, because we didn't learn solely about physics, we learned about so many other things. And at the beginning of the semester, I didn't really realize it, but I now know I learned more information in this class than any other class previously in my academic career. Here is why you should give me a B. Throughout the semester, I've dedicated more of my time on this class than the other 4 classes I'm taking combined. The first half of the semester, I was gunning for an A, so the first half of the semester, all of my work turned in was completed at an A level. However, in the middle of the semester, I stepped down slightly as the other classes began to increase in both workload and difficulty. The second half of the semester, I worked at a solid B level. Each and every discussion, neat resource, and weekly summary was completed in a timely manner and with great attention to detail. So for the first section of the syllabus, as I'll be running down each of the sections and why I deserve that B, the first section was my work on the discussions. So, as per the requirements listed on the syllabus, for a B level, the discussions required me to post additional responses to 85% and dialogue an additional 4 times for each discussion. So up until the halfway mark of the semester, around spring break, I briefly summarized the content we read and gave a personal reaction as well as 8 responses as required for an A. After spring break, however, my posts became much more involved as I started to really connect with the class. Initial posts were lengthy and responses became more engaging. This increased as the semester went on, and with the last few discussions, they were longer than some of my papers for the other classes I'm taking. So although the first half of the semester I did fulfill the A requirement, I feel like I got a lot more out of the discussions in the second half where I performed at a B level. However, throughout the entirety of the semester, I posted to 100% of the discussions, and I believe that I deserve a solid B level for the discussions. The next section of the syllabus was the neat resources, and the requirements for a B were to post at least 85% to each of the neat resources combined, as well as add a 50-word abstract, and to include the top 2 to 3 highlights in my weekly summary. So the neat resources for the semester I completed at a solid B level. I posted resources for 100% of the neat resources we were assigned. I also fulfilled the requirement of a 50-word abstract detailing what the link I posted was discussing. I also added highlights into all of my weekly summaries for the entire semester. I feel like the links I posted were very informative and they were very engaging to the topic that was being presented to us. So once again, back to the syllabus for the next section, the weekly summary section. The requirements for B were to write a summary and a section of what I learned from what we did in class that week. And not just in class, but also the neat discussions and the discussions as well. So, the weekly summaries I also produced at an A level for about half of the semester, and then toning it down to a B level after that point, similar to the discussions. Each weekly summary, however, was very detailed in what we did both in class as well as outside of the class for the week. I learned how to effectively use different platforms to present information in an organized fashion, although I preferred Evernote as it was the most natural platform for me to use. Moving on to the next section, the cultural science required a one-page reaction paper for B. For my cultural science project, I went to the Phoenix Botanical Gardens, which was a good distance away, and learned about the different features of desert plants and how they enabled them to live in such harsh conditions. My reaction paper was 2 pages full of information about 3 examples of desert plants and the different adaptations that they had to use in order to survive in the desert. The final section of the syllabus covered the controversial debate section. Now for a B, I had to comment on all other students' posts. While I did not submit a debate, I did comment on each and every other student's debate. Not only did I comment on them, but I also formed an argument against one side and provided reputable sources to back up my argument and stance over the various topics. I feel like I definitely performed at the level that is required for a B in this section particularly, because I went above and beyond, found outside sources, and did kind of outside research in order to back up the stance that I was trying to present. So overall, throughout the syllabus, I believe that I do deserve a solid B, because half of the semester I was performing at an A level, and even when I did tone it down a little bit, I was still performing at a solid B level.